At a tool like the business model canvas, what makes it so powerful is that if you separate the two sides, you see one that's entirely focused on the customer and one that's entirely focused on operations. What bridges the two sides and ultimately creates a business is your value proposition. For value-driven businesses, this is really the heart of what your business is going to be doing. The key here is to figure out a price point or several price points that allow you to satisfy that value need of your customers while making sure that you can make a profit at the end of the day. So what's interesting about the business model canvas is that you can't approach it as a path. There's no first step. So when you're introducing a technology or an innovation, you may want to start with something like defining your value proposition and matching it with customer segments. But everything, because of the interconnected nature of the business model canvas, you have to deal with everything at once, because once you change one element, one block, it's going to affect all the other 9 blocks or the other 8 blocks. What Bill Aulet has been able to do with his methodology is actually lay out a roadmap to approach step by step sequentially how to start an innovative business. But looking at the business model canvas, when you're applying an innovation or technology, it's important to make sure that it does map and match the need of the customer that you're looking to service. But at the same time, you also have to understand what your relationship is going to be to that customer, what your relationship is going to be to the technology, and what your relationship is going to be to the business operations. So everything is so interconnected that you have to address all 9 blocks at the same time. Something that a lot of people get wrong when they're starting business is they take a piece of technology or their innovation or whatever their value is going to be, and they price it without thinking of the consumer. What you need to do is price whatever service or product that you're providing and match it with the willingness to pay by the customer. If the customer is not willing to pay more than $5, you're not going to get more than $5 for your widget. In the consumer's mind, they're always going to want to get the better end of the deal. So if in their mind they price your widget at $5, you have to price it below $5 to match the expectation of your customer segment. Your key activities are directly correlated with your value proposition because it's the actual delivery of the value to your customers. When you're thinking about whether to go on your own or to build a team, there's an interesting discussion to be had there. Both of the companies I've started by myself to test out the thesis before bringing on team members. So when you're looking at key partners and key resources, you're really looking at what's going to drive the value of your key activities. What I do is work with high school students to approach the topics of entrepreneurship, startups, and business in a relatable and direct forward way. When we're teaching math, we don't teach 6th graders calculus, and that's for a very specific reason. You need to build a fundamental understanding of the subject before you start talking about more complicated business models like double-sided marketplaces or advertising schemes. We need to be able to say, this is a lemonade stand, sell a cup of lemonade, create the value, create more value than the customer is willing to expect, and then create a profit because of that. Hey everyone, my name is Frank Pobutkiewicz. I am the founder and director of the All-American Model United Nations programs, and I'm also the founder and managing director of Whiteboard Youth Ventures. These companies are both about 6 years old, and I started them both directly out of my undergrad when I finished my time up at Boston University. Both of the companies work with high school students, and they're meant to be education enlightenment programs. So they're not meant to help with SAT scores or getting students into college, but they're designed to help students explore advanced topics that they wouldn't necessarily be available in high school. So let me provide some context for the All-American Model UN programs. It was December of 2009. I was in my senior year of undergraduate studies, and the plan was to move to London to work at an accounting firm. Once the market bottomed out, the job and position were eliminated, and I was left without anything to do. While I was studying at BU, I had started this conference in Beijing for high school students to debate different international relations topics. As luck would have it, that conference reached out to me and said, can you try to bring US students, because we're having a very hard time getting US students to come to this conference. So I said, sure, I think I can do this. So as a 22-year-old, my first venture was trying to recruit U.S. high school students, convince their parents and their teachers to then let me bring them to China, having never done it before. So a lot of what I did was try to create a brand that would attract students to this type of opportunity. And the way that I did it was using something that I call prestige marketing. My students have to apply and be accepted onto the teams that I put together that go to these international competitions. As word of my teams got out and our performance was more recognized internationally, we began to get invited to more and more conferences. And now we do 7 trips a year. So the company from day one has been focused around building something that the customer, my students, really want to buy into and be a part of, and then delivering on the value that they're imagining before even starting to interact with the company. So students normally find me through either word of mouth, referral, or inbound marketing. I do a lot of inbound marketing into my website with search engine optimization and social media. Once a student finds out about my product, my service, they then have to apply for my team. If they're accepted, I send them more information about all the different trips that they could potentially go on. After that point, students receive the full acceptance packages. We do remote training. Some of the programs include in-person training here in Boston before we travel. And then the delivery of the service is actually taking the student, educating them, bettering them at this particular form of debate, and traveling with them to China, to India, to Latin America, wherever the conference that we're going to may be. Because there's so many different actors, there's so many different stakeholders in my business model, I have to deliver different value for different people. So for my students, the value that I deliver is making them better thinkers, making them better global citizens, making them better debaters. For students, for parents rather, it's a very different value proposition that I have to deliver on. First and foremost is safety and security. That has to be the first piece of value that I deliver. Peace of mind with international travel is huge for parents. The educational value is very important to parents. And then lastly, how a student can use this in the college application process. On the last part, I also have educators that have a different set of values that I need to deliver on in order to get them to refer my service to their students. Pay-to-play program. Each program has a different tuition that's built into it, and students and parents are responsible for paying those fees. One of the things that stands out and one of the things that I'm most proud of is that in this industry, the student travel industry, the repeat purchase rate is somewhere between 8 and 10%. My students' repeat purchase rate is about 55%. So the value that I'm delivering is proven because of statistics like this. The initial service was a one-time, once-a-year trip taking U.S. students to Beijing, China to compete in this 3,000-person Model UN competition. As the company's evolved, I've added on additional programs and trips. Those trips have more or less stayed the same with what I deliver, but being able to streamline the process, the onboarding process, the training process, the logistics process, those have all become streamlined over the years, whether my students see it and recognize it or not. So everything that I do with All American is about organic growth. This isn't a company that can achieve a massive scale because a lot of the value that is being delivered is dependent on me. It's dependent on my teaching techniques and my work with the students. So it's not something that's ever going to climb that J-curve. However, the company's grown at least 20% every year since I've started the business. And that's simply through, again, word of mouth, developing the reputation, and then attracting more students to the website. I began to expand into other verticals, and that's when I started my second business, which is called Whiteboard Youth Ventures. At the time, I was working at the Cambridge Innovation Center, Kendall Square, and I thought entrepreneurship and startups would be an interesting academic vertical to apply these same teaching techniques to. So that's what I ended up doing, was creating a second product line around business, entrepreneurship, and startups for high school students.